Persistence breaks down resistance, and you need to continue to persist. And I've been persisting on this model for past 10 years. And, I've gotten to a point where we're ready to go. We were given the opportunity to do beat out 90 other worldwide water sector companies prior to COVID. I could spend all day telling you all the advantages of the things that are going in the water industry. But right now, all it is a matter of being persistent, and that's exactly what I've been doing, and that's what I continue to do.
So today on Sea Level, I have Carey Kelley. He's the founder and CEO of Green H2O. Carey, welcome.
Hey, how are you? Thank you.
I'm doing well. I'm excited about today's episode. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we're talking about, especially during these times. We're gonna be talking about pivoting businesses, maybe how you kind of pivoted a little bit as an entrepreneur, and then some of the things that you're doing in your new organization. But I love people's journey through leadership. So how did you get involved in business? What were some of the companies you worked with? What are some of the things you did? Give us some backstory on you.
Well, I started out in the sales industry back in the 80s, and I found that I wanted to do something on my own. So I decided to do something and put a flyer out and start doing some home improvement. I had some plumbing background and stuff like that. So I started out as Carey's All Care, and then I met with a lawyer, a friend of mine who I did some work for. We incorporated under CRK Properties and started a management company where he helped me with some properties, and then we moved from there. And then throughout the 27 years, I've had to change, pivot here and there. You have 9/11. I remember that was very dramatic. And then the financial downfall. So before that, I decided
it 2008? Was it 2008 when you were in property management too?
I started in 93, actually.
Oh, wow.
So in 2000, this is going through the 27 years I've been keeping the company alive. And in 2008, that was the financial crisis.
Yep.
And prior to that, I kept diversifying. So I was managing, repairing, and then I became a licensed realtor. A friend of mine him and I were selling kayak pools. He became a broker. So I didn't want to be a full-time agent. So I hold my license through that because a lot of my clientele were selling their house. I was fixing it. Somebody was selling it. I'm like, well, I can do that too. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got to where I was about 8-9 years ago when I discovered that there's a source of potable water that no one's ever taken the time to figure out how much it is. And that's the journey that I've led me to Green H2O. So I'm doing that, and I'm a startup right now. We're just getting ready to launch a new program. And, prior to the COVID hitting, I had put in an application with a accelerator to go against, we've had a pre-application with 263 worldwide water sector companies. And out of the 263, only 125 were picked to go to full app 2019. And Green H2O was one of that. So we proved the business model. We proved that there's a source of potable water, and then COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So we were going to have a gala and in-person things, and all that changed. So I've had to pivot the model, and right now we're pivoting to a rewards program, which is getting launched. It's soft launched now, and by the end of the month, the beginning of next month, we should have 3-4 partners right now that are going to be getting funds, donations to their companies.
So a couple of things, and backing up a little bit on your journey, like when you got, you were in property management, and then you became an agent, and then you became a broker, right? You became a broker. And so in your pivot, what I see a lot of entrepreneurs do, that's a very smart move, is staying within that, pretty much what that industry covers, right? So you're doing repairs. That makes sense with property management. Then obviously you might as well just start helping people, getting their homes, to where it could be rented out, and then sales with that type of stuff, fixing it up and then selling it. So it makes sense. So what I'm finding that's interesting is now you've made a pivot to this company. So tell me, what did you see in this the water shortage space, and what were some of the things that prompted you to actually move outside of what your core was?
Well, the story goes, I live on a well system in Baltimore County,
Mhm.
and I have two air conditioner units. One drips into my sump pump, and I had put a bucket under, just curious how much water would be produced. And overnight it was overflowing.
Hmm.
So the next couple days, I took it to my well water company that tests my water and said, "Can you test my well water?" I didn't tell them it was AC water because I wanted to know if it was potable. And it came back. They said, "It's your well water's fine. Actually, this test is better because it doesn't have as many particulates in it." So I said, "Well, it's not actually my well water; it's AC water."
Oh my
So
gosh.
after that, a client, customer, friend of mine was a student and was doing their MBA, and they said, "Do you have a business plan a business that you think would work?" And I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I found that the water in my air conditioner is potable." So then we started on that journey. I paid a company to do a 35-page feasibility study, $15,000 to do it, and found that if we were to collect water from just air conditioner units, just homes, just in 20 states in America, and
We're
just
talking about condensation though, right? Not,
condensation,
yeah.
right? And in 20 states, if you collected it and that's all you did, how much water would be available? 19 billion gallons of water every 6 months. And I live next to a reservoir in Baltimore County. It holds 23 billion. So
Wow.
every 6 months, 50% of the households in 20 states are producing that much water, and it's just being usually goes into the drain system or evaporates outside, goes into the sump pump or whatever. So that was the first thing. How much water is there? Is there enough to make it viable? And then we built a model around bottling it. And over the past 10 years, I put tanks on homes, 55-gallon tanks on my home, my brothers, my clients. In the 10 years that we've been working on getting the model to the point where we're putting tanks on larger institutions, on those tanks in 10 years, in 10 homes, 245,000 gallons of water was produced.
Wow.
So then, to get the model up, like I said, COVID hit. So we had based the model on collecting from hotels, selling to high water use industries. Hotels went, nobody's there. High water use industry wasn't using the water. So we've pivoted back to point of source for larger places in order to collect it and say, just for a university, for example, here in Maryland, one building produces 275,000 gallons of water in 6 months. So if we only pulled that water out of the system, typically it goes into the drain system, they would save 3 grand just from not putting it into the waste management. Waste management would save because they're not cleaning clean potable water. Carbon would be offset because they're not using the process to do it. If we use that water to say, water the campus with the water, then they would then save from buying the water from the people. That's another 1,300. So we're in talks with the university. It's winter here now, so
Yeah.
we can't prove that the water will be collected other than from the feasibility study. So going into summer, our goal is to put the tank on, prove that there's that much water, use it as just that, and they're going to save up to $6,000 just by taking the water out of the system, and then build it up from there.
Wow. So, I mean, is there anybody else that's doing this, like using condensation or the method? I mean, do you have a patent on this? Like, where's the uses on this?
Well, nobody else is doing the collection, and no one's multiplied the numbers out. Yes, there are companies that are trying to do condensation, but the thing is, in order to produce condensation, you have to have energy, use energy.
Hmm.
This is a wasted byproduct.
Yep.
Okay, it's already being produced. I'm in Towson, Maryland, right now, on the ninth floor of an office building. I'm looking out at all these apartments that were built. I see over 1,000 air conditioners on top of these buildings, which based on the numbers is producing hundreds of thousands of gallons every 6 months. And that's our goal, is to find a way to capture it, reuse it, take it out of the waste management system, because that'll help from the inundation of the overflows. Because in Baltimore County several years ago, being in the industry that I already am, they passed code to say you cannot put an air conditioner in your house and have the water drain into the drain system, because they did the calculations and realized that they're being inundated. Now, all the older systems aren't you don't have to take it out of the system, but that's, that's proof that what I'm talking about is true. So the goal is to be able to take the model we had, for instance, Dallas, Texas, take the hotels in 6 months. If you just collected from 50% of the hotels, 76 million gallons of water is produced. Okay, the industries nearby use hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. They're depleting the aquifer. The aquifer is being depleted at a rate. PBS did a documentary last year, H2O, the molecule that made us, that states that in the middle states, the ground is sinking at a rate of an inch or two every 2 years, because what they're taking out isn't being replenished due to climate change. So for example, if they're pulling 76 million gallons out, I can produce it at 3.43 cents a gallon. They're paying upwards to 10 cents, and they use green H2O water. Then there's 76 million gallons of water left in the aquifer, and that's only from the hotels. If we were to expand it out to restaurants, standalones, residents, and all that, you're talking hundreds of millions of gallons. That's the goal of green H2O.
Wow, that's very interesting. So about the aquifer, so explain that for some people that aren't really familiar of how that.
Well, most of the agriculture is in the central states because of the climate.
Yeah.
They pull the water directly out of the aquifer. Mining and textile and others pull the water right out of the aquifer. A lot of the battles that were waged are over water. Actually, in California, they're starting to make water a commodity.
Yeah.
So people in America or anywhere you can turn your tap on don't realize the severity of it.
Yeah.
So that's another goal for green H2O, is to let people know in America. For example, during COVID, we found out that the Navajo Nation doesn't have potable water. If we were to use the water that I have, potable water, that would have solved the problem. Along with the Appalachians don't have potable water. So those are all some of the solutions that we're working towards, and that's what the rewards program is starting to be set up for, is to fund projects such as that, along with green H2O, to continue to move the model forward.
And that's about the aquifer, and that makes sense. I mean, you're hearing a lot of these stories with like sinkholes in Florida. I'm wondering if that's probably part of that.
That is part of it, but it's mainly in the central states, because the agricultural, they drill a well and they water the plants, but the water doesn't go back into the aquifer. So the aquifer is replenished by snow and rain, and now we know that it's freezing cold in Texas, but that's because of climate change. So you're going to have the extreme. So that, my wife traveled for work. We visited Utah and California, and I was amazed at all the reservoirs that were almost empty. And if you were to start to collect the water that I'm talking about and just fill a reservoir, for example, our numbers state that in the past 10 years, we could have filled 210 Central Park reservoirs by now.
Wow.
So that's where I'm at and where we need to go. And there's a problem, and we have a solution.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that's great. I mean, and I'm finding there's a lot of people that are investing in water type related businesses. I'm finding, and it's interesting. I mean, it is. I've heard someone say it's like the liquid gold, right? It's some people don't think of it, but and I spent a lot of time in California too, and it's like they talk about the depletion of the water, like where everybody's there's nothing to stop that, right? And so I love innovative ideas like this, especially ways that can kind of help not only help the country but help the world. I mean, there's a lot of places obviously around the world that don't have water that they can drink, and so I think this is it's really ingenious idea. I think that's great. So I mean, we're coming at the top of our episode. If there was one piece of leadership advice that you would give, a business owner or an entrepreneur, especially like when they have to pivot, because you've had to pivot a couple of times, what would that be?
Well, I was in the car business back a long time ago, and the owner of this company told me advice that I've used since then. It's called persistence breaks down resistance. And you need to continue to persist. And I've been persisting on this model for past 10 years. And, I've gotten to a point where we're ready to go. We were given the opportunity to do the beat out 90 other worldwide water sector companies prior to COVID. I could spend all day telling you all the advantages of the things that are going in the water industry. But right now, all it is a matter of being persistent. And that's exactly what I've been doing. And that's what I continue to do.
I love that. So persistence breaks down resistance. Continue to keep pushing forward and you'll break through. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the episode, Carey.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, make sure you mash that like button and subscribe so you get the latest episodes. And if somebody else needs to hear it, please do them that favor and share it.